we work intensely with that student, but we also work as a group. We have a great team. And then the backbone of the team is Joy Jones. She's our registrar. So a registrar is the person who sends the transcripts to colleges, handles documentation, all the official documentation and those things. All right, so those are the 4 people that make up the college counseling office. This morning, we're going to go through our timeline and give you some important information. That's going to be in here from 8:30 to 9:30. While we go through things, we're going to be referencing this book, which all of you have. This is a great book. This is like the 17th edition of this book. And there's a lot of information that you can go back and refer to. That's a good thing to remember as you go through the college process. After 9:30, we'll have a coffee break, and then we have 2 back-to-back sessions, which students and parents signed up for, and those are at various locations over in the academic building. We ask that at the end of the second session, so after you do your second session, we ask in your book there is an evaluation form that we'd like to collect so we can always be improving our programming, and that feedback is what we use to try to figure out what we're doing well, what we're doing really well, and what can be worked on. So any feedback is welcome and encouraged, and we ask that you fill that out. And then at the end of the second breakout session, there is no final wrap-up where we all get back together. And after that session, that's the end of the program. So that's what we have on tap today. Like I said, we're really excited. We hope you're really excited. I can tell by Jim's face over here that he's really excited. So let's have a great day. Thank you.
I would just make one more announcement, and that would be if students would turn off your cell phones. Power them off, not just mute. Thank you. You won't need them. Are you going to nod, wave, or?
We'll play.
Okay.
Not quite as tall as this right now. All right, good morning, everybody. So what we're going to do today is actually get started on what should be the fun aspect of this process. Figuring out what you're looking for in a college and identifying colleges that have exactly those pieces that you want. If you are not having fun during this piece of the process, we're doing something wrong. Obviously, financial aid, all that is a little bit different, but in terms of looking at all of the colleges that are out there, we want this to be an enjoyable process where you're learning a lot about yourself. One of the tools that we're going to use is SCORE. So this is a web-based platform that will be our central hub for everything related to the college process here at Tilton School. Essentially how it works, it's a one login that will link up the student, the parent, and the college counselor all in one place. I just want to give a heads up as we move through a couple of these slides. We wanted to be able to give you the big picture in terms of navigation so you can find your way around this portal. To do that though, you'll want to be able to see in your books the copy that has the smaller print there so you can actually see what's on there. And that will be page 4, I believe. It's right after the schedule for the day.
Page 6.
Page 6.
They're not numbered, but just go through to page 6.
It's the one that looks just like that.
If you want to follow along or make some notes.
And I should also note, because we have our winter play, Putnam Spelling Bee coming up, our stage is a little bit classier than usual, so we have these chandeliers that are going to block 2 of the slides directly where the bright red arrow is pointing. So you'll want to take a look at that in your books as well. But quick plug for the play, you guys should all come out and use that. All right, so we go to the next slide. If you are new to Tilton School and your previous school used SCORE, you do not need to start this process over again. We can just switch your login over to the school student. The other piece that we really like about it, if you have multiple students, you'll only have one login. So So you'll be able to log in, select which student you are working on. That goes both for siblings in different grades or for twins as well. So that'll keep everything in one place. If you have a younger student coming along, by all means, just hang on to this login info and we can use the same process. If you lose that login info, do not worry, we can fetch that for you. The last piece, which I touched on earlier, is this portal is designed so that any work that the counselor and the student are doing together can be reflected on the parent portal as well. So you'll know, okay, these are the schools that my student has been looking at. These are the schools that they like. This is their interest level in particular schools, and you'll be able to follow directly along in the process. We know sometimes if your student is a boarder here, you might not always get all of that information. So having this one centralized online platform will really help us link that all together. Next slide. So what exactly is SCORE? There will be a good number of functions that we're going to use early on in the process. You heard quite a bit last night on the panel about resumes and how that process will play out in the admissions process. Something that SCORE does, because obviously right now, halfway through your junior year, your resume is going to look vastly different than it will at the time that you actually apply to college. So what we can do is we can use a feature through SCORE that essentially makes your resume a live document. So you can update it as new things happen. If you make honor roll, great, plug it on there. If you get a summer job, put it right there. And it'll help you with the formatting and keep everything in one place so that we don't get to October, we're filling out your applications and then realize, oh my gosh, I need a resume, what does that look like? We'll be able to do that all right in SCORE. The main piece though will always be this college planning. This is where we'll search for colleges. This is where we'll collect schools to consider for the actual application list. And this is where we'll track the steps of the application process. Along with that, as you're looking at each of the colleges, you'll be able to look up historical data on these schools. And you can see exactly how Tilton students have fared in the admissions cycles at each of these colleges. You can see what those numbers are. If you're not quite there yet, that gives you a good benchmark in terms of how you want to finish up this year to really position yourself well with those colleges. And then the last piece, you had an introduction to Ms. Jones earlier. She is our registrar. She is in charge of sending every college recommendation, every transcript, every school profile to every college. So it'd be very difficult for you to go in and check in with her every single time something needs to be sent or you want to know the status. SCORE will actually track those for you through the process. You can see, have I requested my files? Have they been sent? Have they been received by the college? We can do that all in one place. So it really takes a lot of the worry out when a colleague emails you and says, hey, we're missing this file. 9 times out of 10, it's already been sent and it's just still processing on the other end. But you'll be able to track all of that right through SCORE and should be able to put your mind at ease a little bit. You'll also be requesting your recommendations through this. So juniors, I do want you guys to start thinking about this. Think about teachers who could be good writers for you. And as you heard from the panel yesterday, that does not need to be the teacher whose class you did the best in. We want teachers who really know you and can speak to your character and the type of student you are in the classroom. There's nothing you need to do on it yet. We do just want you to start considering these aspects, and then we'll be making the requests through SCORE when the time comes. All right, so obviously nobody has logged in yet. How this will work, students are going to receive an activation email. They'll then just log in, create their password, and when we start meeting with students in our small group sessions, they will then invite each of the parents to their profile. So parents, what will happen is you'll receive an email from your student at whichever address they input. Again, don't worry if there's a typo, just let us know, we can handle it. You'll then get an email from SCORE that will look just like this. This is also in your book, but really the only piece on here that's important is the big orange button at the bottom that says complete your registration. So once you've clicked on that, to go to the next slide, you'll then come to a page that's going to ask you to validate your email and create a password. That's simple enough so far, so next page. When we were first creating our sample students, this was the sticking point. So please just keep an eye on this. Turns out it's a lot easier than we thought at first. The student who requests you as a parent, so they're going to type in your email address and send it to you. Once you've completed your login, you'll log in. You'll see your student's profile. There's a small button down on the bottom left that says accept. So you'll accept the invitation from that student. I don't know why you would dismiss your own student, but theoretically you could opt not to work with your student if those conversations have gotten to that point. But you should click the green button so you can follow along with your student's college process. Okay, so next slide, please. You'll then create your profile. This is a good point where I do want to note, this information that we're inputting here is not shared with colleges. What this is how you will receive notifications through SCORE, and then also just for office reference. So if we need to be filling anything out with this information, that's just where it will be stored. At the simplest, if you want to skip this, the only pieces that we really need are name and email address and able to allow us to create your profile. That's all you need to do. So next slide, please. Once you have logged in, this is the screen that you are going to see. So this is the piece that we want to spend a little bit more time on. As soon as students do invite you and your profiles are created, I'd suggest just take some time to poke around and familiarize yourself with the site a little bit, but we do want to go over a few of the key features right now. So, this is where you'll log in right now. This is a new student, so this is what you'll see as soon as you've logged in. There are no colleges listed. That means the student hasn't created a list yet. Let's say you want to help with that process. You have a few schools that you think your student would be a great fit at. Maybe you want to add those, a school that you've heard about. You can do that. So, in the top right, if you can see it past the chandelier, there's a college search button. So we're going to click on that.
I'm clicking, okay.
Next slide. Thank you. All right. So this is then a search tool that has all of the colleges in the United States, most of the Canadian universities, and a pretty solid number of the European universities as well, actually. This is a big upgrade from what we've been using previously. What you'll see, this is a sample search that we ran. Along the left-hand side, you'll see a list of criteria. Size, distance from home, admissions criteria, major, a sport my student plays, and you can select as many or as few of those criteria as you would like to pull up a list that will match your student well. So if we're looking at this sample here, and again, this is one of the pieces that will make a little bit more sense looking directly in the booklet. We've selected a major in electrical, electronic, and communications engineering. So now all the schools that have appeared on this list have that major already. So you don't need to sift through the list of majors to find out, okay, this is a school I've heard about, do they have the major that my student is interested in? This search has done that for you already. We also said there might be an interest in physics. This is a student who's interested in playing tennis. We haven't decided what level yet. So at the very least, you can go in and see, okay, this school has my student's major, they have my student's sport, the location. We said this student is willing to go up to 100 miles away from home. Obviously, the student and the parent search on that one tends to be a little bit different sometimes, so please keep that in mind. You can each save your own searches. Students, please be aware, your parent will be able to see your search too, so if you told them, oh yeah, I'm looking at all schools within 20 miles of home, they'll be able to go in and see that you selected West Coast only. All right, so just please remember that. Parents, you can save searches as well. So let's say you ran this search, you took a lot of time to really fill out those criteria, and then something pops up. You can just save that search and come back to it later. And then the same thing goes for students. So maybe you don't have time to research every one of the colleges on the list. That is absolutely fine. However, let's say you really do like a couple of the schools on the list. If you click through on the school's name, it'll take you to a profile page about the school with information that they have sent to SCORE. It will also have a link directly to the school's website, which in all honesty would be my first stop. Right, what a school says about itself is incredibly important. It'll tell you what they value and what they're looking for in students. So if you log on to that main homepage, and everything on that scroll is something that you could see yourself doing Monday through Friday and then on the weekend, fantastic. That might be a good place to start looking. However, if you open that up and they're advertising programs and activities that just don't interest you, maybe that's a good sign that this might not be the school to continue moving at. Right? That should be step one. That's not the be-all and all of the process, but it's a good place to start. So once you've done that, both students and parents, you'll have the same view. Parents, if you like the school, you'll notice a blue plus mark on the top right corner of each college where it says suggest, where the red arrow is pointing. So you can click on that, and that will then suggest the school to your student. You can do as many as you would like. Once you have, can you click the next slide? A little confirmation box will pop up. Do you want to suggest this school? You'll click recommend. And then you'll be able to see a list of the schools that you have recommended to your student. And when they log in, this will be on their main page. So the first thing that pops up will be a list of schools that have been suggested for them, both by you, the parent, and then it's possible the counselor might put some on there after we've done our initial list. If we have additional suggestions that we want to send, those can be sent directly to that main page. So students, remember, your parents are suggesting schools and it's popping up on your main page, they're going to know that you saw it. So please, take a few minutes, research that school, start to figure out if it's going to be a good fit for you. So let's go to the next slide, please. Part of that process, in terms of figuring out if it's a school that you want to continue exploring, is whether or not that school is going to be a good match for you. We'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but please remember there's a big difference between fit and match. If you match at a school, that means that your numbers, your SAT and or ACT, if you're going to be using it, and then the GPA that we calculate for in-house use only, if those numbers are within the range of what a school is looking for, we would consider that school a good academic match. Keep in mind, that leaves a lot of factors out. Okay? That's not talking about how well the academics fit you. That's not talking about how well the extracurriculars do. This is just our first look to make sure that we're putting together a balanced list. So let's say you have a dream school and you really want to take a look at how well you might work in their application pool. Once you click on that college, could we go back a little bit actually? And then again, let's go to the, yeah. So on this, you'll see each of the schools. I want to make a quick note here. Acceptance rate is noted. Please ignore acceptance rate. That does not speak to what it actually takes to get into the school. It's possible, right? Let's say we look at Gordon College there. They have a 93% acceptance rate. Gordon College is looking for a very specific set of students. So by the time they get to the application pool, students have already figured out, am I a good match for this school? They've done a lot of that work for the admissions office already. So that acceptance rate is misleading. They're still looking for rigorous academics from their students. So in order for us to figure out what it takes to actually get in, to be one of that 93%, we want to go back to these heat maps. So what this is a historical markup of all Tilton students who have applied to this school between 2015 and 2018. So we're going to look at a couple different examples. The first one we want to look at is the University of New Hampshire. Obviously, right, they're about an hour and a half away, so we do a good number of applications there. So each one of these circles represents a student who has applied to this college. There's a key up top. Green accepted, red not accepted, blue waitlisted, yellow is deferred. Deferred refers to students who applied in the early action or early decision pools and were not given a decision at that point. They were moved over to the regular decision pool to be reevaluated. So we shouldn't see a lot of those in poll data, because eventually that student will receive a decision. So if we look at this graph, you'll get a pretty good idea, right? The red circles congregate together. They're not perfect, right? We see a red that overlaps pretty neatly with a green circle. So that speaks to the fact that we were talking about before. This is only taking into account your numbers. Remember, there's a lot more that goes into this application. You need to make sure that those pieces are also going to be on point to really help your application. But this does give you a good early indicator. If you're up in that top square and there's nothing but green circles around you, you should feel pretty good about your odds of admissions. If you're in the middle of the pack there, and still you're in the neighborhood with a whole lot of green, you should feel pretty good. When we start getting near red circles, if we were to put you on this graph, that's when we want to start looking at this and saying, okay, we're building your list. This might be one of your reach schools. Great to have on the list, but we want to make sure that we're creating a balanced list as well. So let's go to the next school, please. So Trinity College, Courtney, who was here last night, is their representative. You'll notice this is spread a little bit differently. So up on the top right there, we have both green and blue together. Those blue students, again, remember, are waitlisted students. However, they're surrounded by green. So, odds are, they had the academic components they needed to be successful at this school. But just like Mr. Roach was talking about, every school is looking for something different. Is the leadership section of your application strong? Did you do a great job with your essays? Did you visit that school? Did you interview with a counselor? Did you show that interest? Did you put in all the work that you could on your application and show what you're going to be bringing to this college? That's where we start to see the difference in these areas that have both green and blue fill. And then also a few pieces to note. There are exceptions for certain areas. And it's hard for us to predict those as well. If you're thinking about recruited athletes, obviously that can change things a little bit in either direction. But still, you need to be academically admissible to that college. I do want to caution when we look at these graphs that when there are outliers, we need to remember there's something special about that application that's going into it. Ms. Roach spoke a lot about the geographic diversity that her college is looking for. Maybe a student who got in a little bit lower than others is bringing that. They're filling a category that a college needs to bring. So we need to be conscious of those areas as well when we're going through this process. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so with SCORE, something that they have that's unique is probably my favorite feature, and I would say parents, you'll agree on this one. You heard from the UNH rep last night that every college is required to have a net price calculator on their website. They are not required to make that net price calculator easy to find, however. So, if you have older students, you've been through this before, trying to track those down, having to fill it out on 8 different websites to figure out what your package might look like, SCORE brings that to one central point. So when you log in as a parent, remember this is your home screen, there's a green button that says calculate your EFC. EFC is your expected family contribution. And again, it's expected based on your FAFSA numbers, not on what you would like to pay, what you feel comfortable with. This is a federal calculation. What SCORE will then do is pull the data from every college's calculator that they put on their website, and will give you a calculation of your EFC run through that college's estimated financial aid calculators. So let's go to the next, please. When you're doing an estimated EFC, essentially what that form is a scaled down version of FAFSA. It will not be 100% accurate, but when you're looking at these calculators, we have found over time that they are very reliable. You should not take this as set in stone. Don't go write a check for that exact amount yet, but these do tend to be pretty accurate. I would suggest once your student has the beginnings of a list and some schools that they're feeling comfortable with and that you visited and you really like, and you're trying to figure out your safeties from a financial aid standpoint, your financial aid reaches, targets, all of those pieces, you can do that right here in SCORE. This will take you about 20-30 minutes to fill out. You'll need to have your past year's 1040s and a W-2 if you have it. These numbers do fluctuate obviously, but remember, this is just an estimate. So if you haven't received this year's yet and you want to get started early, by all means, you can run it on last year's numbers. As long as things haven't changed drastically, you should still have a pretty accurate calculation. So what will then happen, once you have gone through that process, you'll be able to look at your student's application list and see this is what we can expect to pay at each of these colleges. So it gives you a huge leg up in the process, really taking that uncertainty out of it at that point. So you no longer need to send off all your applications and wait to see what's coming back. You'll have a pretty good idea about what sort of financial aid packages you'll be looking at. The one piece I do want to caution, this will not include merit aid. So again, merit scholarships are those based on the school's desire for that student and what their admissions profile looks like. If you're one of the top applicants that a college is receiving that year, you should expect to be receiving a good amount of merit financial aid for those schools that offer it. If you kind of just snuck in through the bottom of the pool, maybe that number won't be as large. Okay? But remember, the expected family contribution and the net price calculator will not take into account merit aid. So remember, there should be a little bit more coming. That will just be the need-based side of the calculation. Again, we know there are always a good deal of questions on this, so feel free to catch up with one of us afterwards or once you've had a chance to sit down with the calculator, we can talk about it a little bit more. Alright, so before we open to questions on SCORE, I really do want to encourage everybody to take some time with this, once you have your login, to really explore. See what colleges are out there, see who's going to match up well with you, and see who has what you're looking for. This is really the exciting time of the process. You're getting to decide where you're going to spend the next 4 years. It could be in an entirely different part of the country. It could be in a school in your home that you've always dreamed about. This is the time when we can really start going in, looking closer, seeing how well these schools match up with what it is that you want to get out of your college experience. So please do take some time with it. Do we have any questions on this platform before we move on? Okay. Alright, so a piece that I really like about this college application process is it really is the first time that anybody is going to ask you as a student, what is most important to you? Because it's probably the first time anybody has asked you this, for a lot of students it's the first time you've ever really had to sit down and take some time to figure out, what is it that I want to get out of this process? What are my strengths, my weaknesses, and where do I want to take this? The first question I want students to start thinking about is, why are you doing this? Why are you applying to college? Why are you applying to the colleges that you're looking at? Obviously, we're going to push you. We're going to have you sit through your college counseling group sessions, and we're going to encourage you to do this process. But you need to figure out for yourself, what is it that I want to take away from this? In going to college, what do I hope to get out of the process? 4 years later, what are the skills that I want? What sort of marketability do I want in the workforce? And how do I want to change as a person? How are these colleges going to help me with that process? And then the next big piece is, what sort of school will you be most successful in? We are a small school district. There are 250 students. Is that an environment that has worked well for you so far? It's the rare school in college that's going to be our size, but keep in mind, when we're talking about a small college, we're typically looking at 1,600, 2,000 students. That's a big jump from where we are. So decide, is a large environment something that would really suit me well? Do I want to be in a smaller setting, small class sizes? Do I want to be somewhere with lecture-based classes? Do I want to be in discussion-based classes? Do I want to be doing seminars and co-ops? Start to think about really what gets you excited about your education and where you're the most successful. Obviously, you've had different teaching styles from different teachers here, and think about which of those have suited you best. Obviously, some styles mesh with different students differently than they do with others, so please be aware of that and start to think about where you will do best. The other piece that I like, right now as juniors, nobody is applying. Nobody applies to college this year. So you do not need to know exactly where you want to go right now. We do need you to go out and see as many schools as you can of as many different types. Your junior year, we're talking quantity over quality. I do not care where you go visit, I care that you visit. So if you're going to visit grandma and you're driving by a college, set up a tour. If you've got a lacrosse tournament in Florida, they have colleges there too, go visit them. We want to see as many different types of school as possible. You might very well be surprised by a school that you've seen in a good way and a bad way. A bad visit can be just as helpful than a fantastic visit. I've had students walk into the office and say, I always want to go to a small college. I visited this one. There is no way I can go anywhere with less than 2,000 students. And right there, we've crossed off thousands of colleges, and all of a sudden your search is much more focused. So make sure that you're seeing a variety. Don't set your sights on only one type of school at this point. You have a lot of time to still figure this out. Make sure that you're seeing those schools so that you can start to make those decisions for yourself. And then again, do not worry when it comes time to apply. We're not going to be applying to one college in every category, right? In our junior year, we're making that stretch, and then we'll start to narrow it down at the end of the year, over the summer, and into the fall. Next. So we talked about match earlier in terms of how well your numbers fit a particular college. Now we need to talk about fit. In many senses, this is the most important part of the process. Getting into the school is one thing. Being happy and being successful at the school is a vastly different process as well. So, you need to take into account everything. Is size going to be important to you? The atmosphere of the school. What does it feel like on campus? What's the culture of the school? What are the academic programs like? Obviously, do they have your major? Are they strong in your major? Is that a large program? Do you like the professors in that major? Where is it? This is often a very large one for students. How long is it going to take you to get home? Do you like the area? Is there enough for you to do? Is it, let's say maybe you're looking at the other side of the process. I want to stay somewhere rural. Take all of these pieces into account before you start making these ultimate decisions. And as you're visiting, I want you to start figuring out which pieces are going to be important to you. Obviously, we have a few of the big ones here, but sometimes a student will walk in and say, you know, I don't really care where the school is. That's not a factor that's of great importance to me. So start to figure out what those factors are for you. Okay? And parents. We got some great advice from the panel last night in terms of the parent role in this process. You know your student very well. So odds are you have a pretty good idea about where you think they'll be successful. Those can be helpful. We also want the student to start going through that process on their own. So as you visited a college, one big piece when you get in the car afterwards is have the student say what they thought before putting their 2 cents in. The advice that you have is incredibly important, but we don't want it to shade what the student thinks about that school. And once you've had those initial conversations, make sure that you're recording that. If you're visiting the number of colleges that we're going to encourage you to, they're going to start to blend together, so make sure that you're taking notes on this. And this is a piece where a parent can be very helpful. Have those discussions with your student, figure out what they thought about each school, and find a way to collect that information so we can go back to it. There, one last note on the last one. You'll see in parentheses there, a journal and pictures are recommended. Students, I do not want to ever see your phone on a college tour. Parents, if you want to take pictures, have at it. That can be incredibly helpful. A quick tip there, because again, these will start to blend together. When you arrive at a school, take a picture of a sign with the school's name on it, so that you know where pictures from that school started. If you're starting to visit very similar colleges, and you have 200 pictures in a camera roll from a 4-day college tour, you're not going to know which one's which, so kind of set bookmarks up like that. Take a picture of the school, school sign, go along your day, take pictures as you will. When you get to the next school, another picture of the sign. Next, please. All right, so these are the big pieces that we do want to consider as well. This process is about self-discovery, So you need to really be open-minded. As we talked about before, where are you going to be successful and what do you want to get out of this process? And don't rush to those judgments. We have plenty of time to figure this out. So please, take your time. Think about what's going to be most important to you. And also be aware, what are your strengths? Where will those strengths be best served? With the areas that you struggle with, make sure you find a college that's going to match up well with that and really help you in those areas. To do that, you need to know what those areas of growth are. So make sure that you're thinking about that. And again, parents, this is an area where you can be extremely helpful in helping your student work through those conversations. And then again, just be patient. We have plenty of time to do this. We're going to start meeting. We're going to meet one-on-one all throughout the fall next year. There is plenty of time for this process. Nobody needs to be panicking right now. If it gets time to panic next year, we'll let you know. But for right now, nobody should be panicking. All right. So, that's going to be the process of starting our search, creating our list. Ms. P is now going to walk you through some of the policies and procedures, the timeline of how that will work in our office here. All right, Ms. P?
I'm doing this slide. This is my slide? Okay, I'll take it. It's just... Okay, so a couple of things have happened already. I'm sure the students enjoy filling out those questionnaires, the world around you, and then the really short form that we had you do. Parents, you also had a chance to give us some input that's really important to us. And it's a way that you can let us know about fit for your student and where that all matches up. And we would like to see more of those. Not every parent has sent one in, so if you have not had a chance to complete those and send them in, you still have time. And we use those not only for developing the college list, but we also take little gems out of those sometimes for our recommendation letters. So they're really important to us. So I wanted to talk about that GPA. And you might say, my student never has seen a GPA, and that won't actually go out to a college. The grade point average, as Mr. Casisto noted, is something that we develop in-house and only use for the purpose of looking at those heat maps, just so students can kind of judge where they're at. And it is only using the core courses, so we don't use the arts. And we have students who apply to art school, we have students who apply to theater programs, and so they'll have a very different look at the GPA. But in general, we only use the academic core. I like to say we use the worst case scenario for a student so that we can have a cautionary look at the student's match. So it's English, math, science, world languages, social sciences, the histories, psych, those courses that we're going to use, those 5 areas to develop the GPA. Some student, parents will come and say, I think my student's grade point average is much higher than that, and it's because we've only used the 5 core. All right? That doesn't mean that colleges won't go in and calculate and use every single class the student ever took, because some will. But we have to start somewhere, so we use that cautionary piece. So that, when we put together a college list of possibilities, we're going to put the list into A, B, and C categories. You're going to see that list come out in March. We do need some time to work with your student to go through some of these classes before we can put together a solid search and list. So I know that we've had a few requests from parents to have the list now. We're just starting this work. We really don't want to skip over that self-discovery piece and the time that it takes for self-reflection. So we will prepare the college list, and that will include parent suggestions, the student wishes, and then we broaden as college counselors that list in the areas that we think need a few more additions. Okay? So the A list would be those that we consider to be a little bit of a reach for a student. The B list is more of a target list of schools. And the C is the more likely to be admitted. We don't call anything safe. It's more likely to be admitted, okay? Because there's so many different factors in play. So we want a full balanced list for the research at that point. And then we hope that in the end, when we come to that final application list, that there are some of those A, Bs, and Cs. Again, still a balanced list when we get to that final applicant list. Students are encouraged to use the visits, the research, feedback to make that list a working document. So when we say that we put something into SCORE on that wish list, it can be a wish list all the way up until the point where we're applying. So one thing I like to say is we don't know about that college choice unless it is in SCORE. So it doesn't really exist unless it's in there because we can't send documents. It's all related to that college list that you keep updated. You can put a college on the list one day and remove it the next day. That's fine. So it's always in a working list. So you can't break it. You can't get stuck with one choice. You can be adding and subtracting as you wish, at will. So we do hope that you're going to firm up your list in September. Some of the international students, we ask you to do this maybe in August because you have a few additional pieces that I will be speaking with you about that are required from the colleges for your student visa and review. So we will have a session later just about those critical components for you. So your timeline might speed up a little bit with your TOEFL testing of a few extra requirements, and we can switch to next. Another policy piece, and you will find these on our website. I encourage everyone to take a look at our handbook for the class of 2020. It's under the college counseling pages. So if you can't remember what I had to say today, you always have a reference of what we're going to do and how we do it. But we do not rank our students. We are a small school. So a student could very quickly end up at the bottom of the class and still have a 3.0 if we ranked students one against the other. We also have students who enter at different points in their high school careers and join Tilton School. So we can't really rank them. They weren't here since 9th grade. And not everyone was here as and will be a 4-year senior. How many of you have been here since 9th grade? Yeah, okay. So you've had a lot of people join you. So we can't do that for the colleges, so we don't rank. We do, however, provide that profile that Courtney talked about last night, and you have included in your documents here. And that will give a grade distribution chart. Okay, that GPA that we use is a Tilton-only GPA from Mrs. Jones and is related to every class that you took only at Tilton School since you arrived here. We don't include any courses from a prior school. Okay, so it's just a 1-year view, and it's only the junior year. So what you have in front of you today is for this year's class, 2019. Okay, you will have a new document, a new profile, but it won't be out until August. I think it's wise to note that a number of schools are test optional. It grows every day, the number of schools that are saying that the SAT and ACT is not the best indicator of student performance when they get to their schools. And so there are many, many choices for test optional. However, you have to keep in mind that a particular major may require you to have testing even at a test optional school. So you have to read the fine print. So typically, most often, students who are interested in nursing will still have to take the testing and have to present it. Students interested in education want to be teachers still have to present testing. And that's because you have other standardized tests that you're going to have to take along the way. Maybe in sophomore year in college, you're going to be taking some practice exams, something that is standardized. So they want to make sure that you're a standardized test taker, an accomplished test taker. And even though these companies say they're not easily coached, they are. So you can spend some time and become a better test taker if you need to be. And I think everyone here has made a decision about what they're going to do for test prep. And some of that work will begin not this coming week, but the following week, our first full week of the second semester. So students are either in Khan Academy, they're working with a company that their family chose for them, or they're doing the Sunday classes with Nowhere Academic for test prep. Okay. We do have a session with Ms. Brisson on the NCAA and students who are scholarship candidates for Division I and Division II who need to meet certain eligibility requirements, and testing becomes important to them. So the school, the university may not require SATs or ACT, but the NCAA does. So testing becomes important. Unless it's a D3 school, again, D3 has its own recruitment process. They do not give anything that's called an athletic scholarship, right? So they don't have to go through the NCAA for that. They may, however, call that work leadership and give you a merit scholarship. There's other ways that they may look at your achievements and honor those, but it's not anything they can call an athletic scholarship. So if you are interested in that area and what it's like to be a recruited athlete, Ms. Brisson will be talking about the D1 and the D2 candidate, but she's also talking about the D3 candidate as well, and what you can do to better your profile, and what the parent role might be in that, and what is definitely the student role. And she has some opinions. We all know we've worked with college coaches, and she's going to go through all of that with you and help you with making yourself a better candidate. Okay, switch. So really what this time is about is those family discussions. We like to schedule this program for the grading weekend and to switch between semesters so that you have some time, all of you together, to talk about what's been happening over these 2 days. We hope that the discussions get heated at times, but we would like to just make sure that the talk begins. And you start kind of pulling through what it is that's important to all of you. And especially those financial discussions. It's really good for a student to know what's going to be possible as they proceed. I know it's difficult to have some of those discussions, but the time is now. So make your plan for visits. We do have a long weekend coming up in February, a very long one, with some weekdays that are free. That's that good time to go out and visit some of the, a university, a large research university, a local liberal arts college, and get an idea about size and what that feels like. You do not need to interview. You just need to get on that campus and take that tour. So use that time well, just as again, you don't have to be invested in that school. As a matter of fact, I suggest visiting schools that are not at the top of your list first. Okay, so that you get an idea in case they try to rope you into an interview. That first interview wasn't your top choice school and the one you cared most about, because you need some time to practice. So please register with SCORE and start exploring. We're going to invite you next week, students. And then students, you can invite your parents, okay, to join in on that. That will happen if we could switch. Okay, so I mentioned that handbook. And while we're going to that, could you go to page 4 of your resource book? There's a secondary school report. There's a few documents that we send out with every application. Besides that school profile that I talked about, the secondary school report will go out. It's where we tell the colleges that we're not going to provide a class rank. That's where we tell the colleges that we're not giving them a GPA. Most of them are going to recalculate it anyway. And then here's where we talk about the level of the rigor of the coursework. So remember that grade point average behind that GPA that we put together. There's actually course experiences there. So we look at that rigor and determine whether the course of selection for that student in relationship to our school only and the other kids in your graduating class. Is it less demanding than average, about average, more demanding than average, and most demanding available? So you wonder, how do you determine that? If you flip over to the third page, we give you the guidelines, how we determine the rigor of the academic program the students pursue. Okay, so it's all right there. You can figure out what it is that we're doing and how we're going to report out to the schools and see where you fit. If you backtrack one page, the disclosure of disciplinary infractions, that's an area that I don't want to have to identify any one of you in regard to this. Okay? So from now on, your choices that you make at this point are really important to your future. Think about that. Think about any position that you might put a friend in before you ask them to do something that they shouldn't be doing. Take care of one another and be smart. Now, if there was some kind of blip in your record already, maybe you were in the 9th grader transitioning into boarding school life where we have you under a microscope and we're with you 24 hours a day, then we will talk with you about how you would report that out. We would support the student in making a statement to the colleges about that. And you know what? They've seen it before. Okay? It's a developmental issue usually. Time for students to mature. That's important. They understand that. You just don't want anything happening between the middle of junior year into the senior year. Okay? Because the maturation process, we hope, has occurred. So keep that in mind. We do have to report out to the colleges. It is an obligation of our office. We're part of an organization of colleges, admission offices, and high schools. And this is a principle that we follow and we sign that we're a part of. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. So we're not going to have to talk about it again. I'm sure. And so we're on to the actual timetable. Oh, I saw Ms. Brisson lurking in the background, so I got a little nervous on the time, but yeah, she's doing a warm-up over there. So the college process weekend kicks off, and then we will start not this coming week, right? Not the full week. Not this week because it's a partial week, I'm sorry. We start the first full week of the second semester with the college counseling group sessions. Ms. Jones is sending out a new schedule for you so that's built into your schedule. You're not going to have to guess when it is that you're going to join us in the lecture hall for those college counseling sessions. And then those students who are doing the Khan Academy proctored session once a week, that also will show up on your schedule. So she's preparing those in the coming week, and you should have them. She'll email them out to you, and there should be no guesswork on it. There is one exception. We have a new schedule, as you know, for the spring, and the system that we have, the administrative system, does not have an F period on it for Monday. So she's going to invite those students who have an F period class, those few students. She's going to invite you with a Google invitation. And you should respond to that. So those students that might be in that F, you will receive a special invitation from, and an explanation from Ms. Jones. Okay, so in February and March, this is when we're really looking at those preliminary pieces of the search process. And we also will go through and look at which courses you might take for next year. You might think, well, we haven't even finished what we're doing now, but we will help you build your coursework according to an academic program that you might be thinking about for the following year, right? So whatever it is that you might be putting down on your application as a major interest, we want to make sure that you have an academic program that supports that. So your advisor is a big piece of this, and so is your college counselor, and we work closely with your academic teachers to see what you're going to be recommended for the next year. Okay? So you have a whole team around you in this decision making. So we also would like for you to think about summer plans. Some people will have a full-time job. We encourage that. Some people will do a 2-week intensive study in an area that they're thinking about. It's kind of hard to understand if you want to be an engineer when you haven't really had too much time to take a course. You haven't been able to take engineering with Ms. Yam yet, because that's a senior year course usually. So we do encourage some exploration during the summer. We have lots of programming, brochures in our office. There's a great website called Teen Life, and they organize their information so that you can actually do searches and sort by academic program that you're thinking about. So you can go off to a school in Indiana and build a catapult, or you can go off and do some research in microbiology with a professor, or maybe you need to develop a short film in order to send that off to colleges as part of your portfolio. So it depends. And then again, like I said, work is great, especially if you can say that some of your earnings went to paying for Tilton School tuition the next year. Parents would probably like that idea, right? So being a contributor. So spring break is definitely a great time to visit colleges. Just keep in mind that in March, the colleges have a break. We have 2 weeks off. They usually have 1 week off. So you're going to find some colleges that are open and available to you. You can start interviewing at that time because we've already conducted a mock interview. We provide the opportunity for the juniors to interview with a college representative. We usually have 5 or 6 college reps come in the week before your break on a Monday, and during a free period, you can sign up for that chance to practice. Most everyone will take that opportunity. That's something that we will not make a requirement. It's one of our strongly suggested opportunities. And so you know that that will be coming up, and it's on the Google Calendar, on which day that is. In April, we're going to start with testing. Every junior will take an ACT on April 13th. You've been excused from classes on that day, and you will take an ACT test. April 18, we'll take you to the college fair. So Tilton School has no parking for all these colleges to come in and to set up and visit with us here. So we go to a local college, small college. We go over to Colby Sawyer in New London and use their space. And there'll be between 180 and 200 colleges, mostly from New England, some of them from down south, even a couple of international universities. And we bring the whole junior class over to Colby Sawyer for that fair. It's a Lakes Region Independent School effort. It's something that we sponsor together to make sure that our juniors have exposure to a number of different universities. So that's your chance to go and shake hands, introduce yourselves. We'll talk with you about how to make that approach. And every student will have at least 5 colleges they'll visit with at that program. And they'll have set questions to ask. So we do all that prep work in our counseling group sessions. Parents, if you're within driving distance, you're also welcome to join in and be at that fair. And as it was suggested last night, 2 steps behind your student at that table as they introduce themselves. We will, in April, have a college essay writing workshop where we have a college come in and present a little bit more in-depth than our BU rep did last night. So actually read through college essays that they found interesting, that the other staff members at their university found interesting and why they found those interesting, and a couple that they found to be not useful at all. At that point, we will have done some of our own writing. Students will actually be putting together that first round common application essay in April. So we try to put that to bed by the end of the junior year so that you can move on and take care of those supplemental essays that you heard about last night. So there's not just one piece of writing, there are many pieces of writing that will have to happen for a college application. So if somebody's interested in the University of Michigan, for instance, they have that one common app essay, and then they have 3 other short responses of maybe 250 words each. That's tough to do, to be succinct, to get to the point, to answer the question, and to make it meaningful. So there could be 3 additional pieces just for that one school. So the weekly meetings will come to a close after the fair. That does not mean that students cannot sign up and come in for an individual appointment. We welcome that. It just means that we're getting ready in our office to be the Advanced Placement Test Center. So our lives are taken over by testing for many of you, and so will your lives, right? Because a lot of our seniors will take maybe just at least one AP course. So you're getting ready for all of those. And we're also getting ready for the May SAT. So some of you I know are thinking that you want to take testing in March, and that's fine. We don't offer it here because we're on break, so we can't give the March test. But if you do take a March SAT close to your home, just know that in May you're going to take another test with us. Again, you've been excused from classes. As you make your plan, include that May SAT. It may be that you're going to take subject tests and not the regular SAT reasoning. That's fine. But you will be testing on that day, and we will help you with that plan. Okay? Everyone has access to this timeline. We have given you notification about the timeline, and the test dates are in the front of the, if you can go back to, I think it's on the handbook, page 1, opening. Here we are. There are the important dates as we follow through. And your last test date would be November 2nd. Okay. Early decision candidates, we need to have your commitment and know about those documents and that you're going to be applying early decision by October 1. Otherwise, we finish up all of the college applications by Thanksgiving, right? So that families can get together and review all of the work. So parents, you're not exempt. You have a chance to do that final review, take a look, make sure everything is as you would wish it to be, and put your stamp on that final list and what the work looks like. And then you will actually start submitting those documents. And those documents can be submitted from home over the Thanksgiving break with you, or you can have the student come back with a credit card or debit card and start sending in those documents and applying to college when they return. Okay? And I think I've gone 5 minutes over. We need to go on to the concurrent sessions, and parents might want to fill up with another coffee. The plan is, if you're here for tips for the athlete,